I knew I wanted to be a businessman growing up. I always wanted to make a lot of money. I learned early on in the professional landscape is just how powerful your mind is. You know, I've been through various challenges, and like first year wasn't overly successful. And it was tough to see me working much harder than certain people around me, but because they had a better natural market. Right. You're hearing about $50,000, $100,000 commission cases, and I'm like, they barely pick up the phone. And I'm staying here till 8, 9 o'clock grinding just to get things going. It got to a point where I was like about to go into the negatives.
Mickool Karsa is the Midwest president at Lido Advisors and a Forbes-recognized wealth advisor, known for helping entrepreneurs and families build long-term financial freedom.
Welcome to Take the Power Back. I am delighted today to introduce my cousin, Mickool Karsa. Not really my cousin,
but brothers, cousins,
kind of similar. We're both Lebanese by descent. So Karsa's Lebanese, Mickool is Mickool, and I'm delighted to have you here. Appreciate it. You flew all the way from Arizona to come over to do this, so I couldn't thank you more, first and foremost. But let me introduce you to Mickool J. Karsa.
Hey, look at that. Quite the intro.
You know?
Great to be here, and I know it's been a long time coming, so I'm glad we were able to align calendars and make it happen.
So appreciate you.
Great to be here.
So why don't we start? Why don't you tell us who Mickool J. Karsa is? What do you do?
Where do I start?
Yeah, where do you start?
But yeah, I guess in the current state, I'm a senior partner and regional president for what you would consider at this point a large RIA. We've grown massively over the years, and so I really just oversee our growth efforts, which is a way of just saying sales, right? Everything comes back to sales, and I just drive new business, bring on new clients for the firm.
Yeah. So, and how much I don't know if you can say this stuff, and I know there's limitations, but we can always edit things out, just so you know.
Yeah.
But how much do you manage on behalf of clients?
In total, in terms of what kind of feeds under my book, is north of $4 billion in assets under management.
Wow, good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you. Congrats.
Thank you. Yeah, that's been organic. So when I started at the firm I'm at now is September 2015, and it was just me. And essentially working out of my basement bedroom in Lincoln Park, Chicago, and just really mastered a process and got so busy that I needed to hire help and hired on Alex Cobe, who also worked under you at one point, and just continued to grow organically from there. And we have a team north of 40 people now.
Wow.
And that $4 billion is just, brick by brick, one step at a time and one client at a time. Yeah. It's been a wild ride, to say the least. But timing's everything. I'm very lucky in terms of, the opportunity I fell into. But with that said, I took it and ran with it, right? So
you created it, though. So let's talk a little bit about that, because we've chatted over the years, and I remember I tried to talk you out of taking the job. So good thing you didn't listen to me, right? Some of the worst advice.
You were neutral, right? So you laid out the pros and cons.
I did. I actually told you to take it. Is the truth. I didn't know if you would remember it that way, but I didn't want you to leave because I know the talent that you have, but the job offer was a good offer.
Yeah.
Right. But you went into this and really, I don't want to say you built Lido, but you were the guy who brought in most of the assets in the beginning.
Yeah, it was, there was really no blueprint right at the time. So I was the 18th employee. Yeah. Today we're north of 450, and that's 10 and a half years later. So it was pretty much just our home office team, and then a woman was hired out of Dallas, and then I was the second external hire at the time, and then Chicago. So Allie, who's a part of the firm, also senior partner, she I'd say initially broke the glass ceiling in terms of what the opportunity was in terms of being able to bring in assets at the firm. But her and I essentially simultaneously kind of, it's really interesting. We end up kind of in the same place in terms of the way we structure our teams, the way we structure our process, the way we handle onboarding, our quote unquote scripts from A to Z throughout the client experience are all extremely similar, but we didn't really share too much of best practices along the way. So it's kind of funny. We ended up in a very similar place. But yeah, to your point, there wasn't much structure. It was just like, hey, here's the referral sources that we have. Go make it happen, and made it happen.
Wow.
To say the least.
Well, and I remember some of the days talking to you earlier on. So I think sometimes people, when you see success, and Karsa for you 36?
In May, I'll be 36,
right?
So 35.
So Karsa, let's just put it this way, and he's in the top half of 1% of Americans, and he's 36. So many people will never achieve the level of success that he has, and it didn't come easy. It was really about work ethic. Could you talk about, and we'll talk about earlier on, but what it looked like for you when you were the guy in the basement, going, getting on a plane, morning, noon, night. So talk about what it looked like.
It was a dark. It was a dark place. It really was. But like anything else, I knew what the carrot was at the end of the stick, right? And I knew, or at least I didn't know, but I had a good idea that of the potential exponential opportunity from becoming an equity partner in the firm, and then obviously from an income standpoint. And I forget the quote, but it's it was at the firm that you and I had been a part of. It's like, begin with the end in mind.
Yeah.
And I always kept that end in mind. It's like, okay, to be a partner, to be able to participate in successful rounds of private equity, to have uncapped income potential, like that's what would get me out of bed in the morning, to say the least. But yeah, it was working 7 days a week. It was essentially like building a firm within a firm, or what you would say is entrepreneurial, right? So it was planes, trains, automobiles. So waking up early to catch a flight to, a 7 a.m. flight to Detroit, and then stacking meetings all day and flying back at 8 p.m. that night, getting in, 8, 9, 10 o'clock. And then next day driving to Chicago suburbs nonstop. And then, but as you're always on the go, well then, okay, I'd be stacked with emails that I was getting as I was on the move. So I'd get home 8, 9 o'clock and then be up till midnight responding to emails, and then doing it all, day after day. And then the weekends would be, again, catching up on emails. I would drink 2 energy drinks a day, 2 Red Bulls a day, and then I would take Z-Quil every night to be able to fall asleep. Yeah. But that was you couldn't. At the time, that was to go from 7 a.m. to midnight. Right. That's what was required. So it was just like a vicious cycle. And it was, again, a bit of a dark place and mentally at the time. But again, it was staying focused on the big picture and not what was just in front of me. And it paid off, to say the least. To say the least. Yeah. I would say that's probably best decisions I ever made, for sure. But at the time, it was a little dicey. It was a lot of work. Yeah. A lot of work. So let's back up a little bit. You went to Illinois? Iowa. I always get those two confused. I don't know why. I wanted to say Iowa. And you grew up in Illinois. Correct. I grew up in Downers Grove, so southwest suburb of Chicago, and very middle class. If I needed it, I got it. If I wanted it, Christmas and birthday. Right. Okay. So, but yeah, 2 very hardworking parents. What'd your parents do? My dad was in refrigeration, so eventually went into management for a refrigeration company, but he was, working and with his hands and keeping Dominic's and Jewel grocery stores and anything cold or frozen working. And then my mom worked at a dentist and orthodontist office, as a treatment coordinator, walking potential, I don't know what you would call them, clients, but customers through their routes, whether it's races or whatever it may be. So two extremely hardworking people. They both would work overtime, never complained about the extra time they put in. And I think I couple my work ethic both from my parents and also participating in athletics at a young age.
Played football, right?
I played travel soccer.
Soccer.
Initially, and then football when I wanted to be cool in high school and wanted girls to like me. Yeah. No offense against soccer players, but at least back then, maybe
nowadays
it's different.
It's different.
Yeah, maybe it's flipped. But back then, football was the way to go in high school. But anyway, pretty much leading up to that from 8 years old till 14, so essentially until going into freshman year, highly competitive travel soccer team. We would travel the country playing teams. We were ranked nationally, top 10, and multiple state championships. So I really attribute, again, both my upbringing as well as tasting success, especially on a state and national level as a 10, 11-year-old, and be like, wow, that's what it takes. But there is a means to an end, right? We would have practices before elementary school.
Really?
Yeah.
So what's that, like 7 in the morning or 6 in the morning?
Yeah, it was intense, right? As a third grader, right? So, but it's like, okay, to go through that and then collectively, work as a team towards a common goal, and then to taste that success, it really set the tone for the way and the lens that I viewed the world in all different ways.
So why'd you study finance? So where did that start to shift to money?
I would say a few things contributed to that. One was, I knew I wanted to be a businessman growing up.
So Lebanese.
Yeah, right.
We're Lebanese.
Yeah, exactly. So the entrepreneur. And what is a businessman at the end of the day? But I just envisioned wearing a suit to work, having a suitcase, and working in downtown Chicago, and doing something important. To me, that was what I envisioned. And so, as I got older, and then high school, and then college was okay, initially pre-business, and then you took some accounting courses, and I'm like,
I don't want to do that.
Yeah, okay, I know that's the best thing to go, but I don't want to be doing this. So kind of the next layer or next level below would be finance, right? So I'm like, okay, and my dad was always intrigued by the markets. He had always had an advisor manage money, but for him, but CNBC. Would be on in the morning growing up. And I'm I was always intrigued by it, and knew kind of, it's what made the world go around. And I felt I'm a bit of a control freak in certain ways, and I wanted to be in control of my financial future personally. So it's what better way to get a strong foundation in finance? And I always wanted to make a lot of money.
There's nothing wrong with that. Don't apologize.
Let's not beat around the bush.
Yeah, let's not beat around the bush.
It was okay, well, I know there's major opportunity from an income standpoint working in finance, and I didn't quite know what path that exactly would end up being, but I just knew that was certainly a path towards an upper class or greater lifestyle, and then lastly, I'm competitive, right? And so I knew that, or at least I didn't know, but the way I viewed it was, once I get post-graduation, everyone's on the same playing field, right? Sure, if you went to a Harvard or a Yale or, a top 5, 10 school, maybe, different story. But after that, at the end of the day, everyone's got the same degree. Yeah. And so I knew once I was put in that place when it mattered, because I wasn't the best student, just didn't really like going to class, and I don't know if I have unprescribed ADHD, but I just would go there and I wouldn't be able to pay attention. So I'm well, why even go? Right. But I had to keep a 3.0 plus GPA to stay in the business school, so I was good enough of a student. But I skated by, doing the least that I had to do. But I was just waiting for that opportunity post-graduation to just have a springboard, and that's essentially when we met. So.
So let's talk about that. So basically, when you get out of school, I think it's hard, especially, I'm a businessman. The category it's just massive, right? Yeah. So you go on a bunch of job interviews. You land at McAdam, which is where we met. And what are the jobs that you look at, and what was the appeal? Why did you go this direction?
Sure. Yeah, it was really two paths being considered. Was like a corporate finance route. So just, being an analyst for a Fortune 500 company, and that was the safe route. Yeah. At the time, $50,000 to $70,000 salary. And called that, being 13 years ago with inflation, probably the equivalent of 80 to 100
somewhere
today.
Work.
So, and benefits, and I'm like, okay, that sounds solid. And, I think at the time my parents probably would have liked me to go that route too.
Preferred that, right?
Sure, yeah. Right. The story is old as time. But then, I don't know, I enjoyed working with people and being social, and, there was I think it's an Elon Musk quote, and it's, you're compensated, I'm going to paraphrase, but it's like you're compensated based on the complexity of the problems that you solve.
Yes.
Right. Exactly. And I think it is so true to this day. And so for me, it's like, okay, well, you're replaceable if you're in the back office. Mm-hmm. Right. You could easily hire someone with similar, if not more experience, with the same type of degree. And so you're going to be paid as someone who is replaceable.
Right.
And so owning the relationship, I can't emphasize enough. And I had just done a lot of research at the time, and I was like, I wanted to be at the front end, client facing, to maximize income potential and to make it difficult to be replaced. And so, I guess to land the plane here, the financial advisor path checked every single one of those boxes, right? Obviously, the finance, the markets, the client-facing component, where we were working at, unkept income earning potential, and challenging and competitive, and it was the perfect storm. I didn't quite know it at the time, but I knew it would check a lot of boxes. Something that's actually interesting now is I would consider myself an extroverted introvert. Mm-hmm. But, we would do the tabling marketing events, and that's kind of how the job was sold. It's like, oh yeah, you generate warm leads working these weekend events, which was true. Mm-hmm. But when you first start and you hadn't done many of those, it's like, well, here's a stack of, cold leads that,
just go get them.
Yeah. No one's ever picked up, and or they told you to F off a few times, and I'm like, oh my God, like I'm gonna have to do this, and it's just I kind of just had to face my fears, and I'm like, well, I can't go back. Like, this is, what other path am I gonna go? Right? This is it, and so make it work, buddy. And I just had to dig deep, and again, another thing you instilled in me, right? If you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing. Yeah. And again, I think that's as true as ever. And I became comfortable being uncomfortable, and it was almost like it was a daily gauge. I'm like, am I comfortable in what I'm doing right now? And if that is the case, I'm probably not doing the right activity. And so I became almost attracted, like a moth to a flame, in terms of finding things to do that made me uncomfortable. And I think that really built a strong foundation, especially in the career path of being a financial advisor. I
think experience gives you a callus to stuff like that. And today they call it imposter syndrome, right? And I think everybody feels that. Right? That discomfort is do I belong here? Am I worthy of this? Or there's two questions always: can I do it, or will I do it? It's skill versus will. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you're like, oh, because I can't, I don't have the will to do it. But if you actually will through it, you can, and it'll become easier.
Sure.
Right? Just like anything, it's like building a muscle or learning to play an instrument, or any skill in any job, it's the same. but you just have to get the emotional fortitude to be able to continue to persist regardless of how you feel. We're at Coach Bert's place, and he says, amateurs don't listen to their feelings, right? So
Sure.
you have them, but you have to persist and just know that it's normal to go through it.
100%. And what I learned early on in the professional landscape is just how powerful your mind is, right? And I've been through various challenges and athletically and certainly in school at times, but just there was a situation where my first year wasn't overly successful, right? And it was tough because I didn't oftentimes you would go to your natural market, right? So friends, family, take some meetings with you and your manager to try to drum up some business. And because the job was full commission, as you're aware. And so, my parents helped me out, and a few, friends and family, and that, lasted me, roughly, 6 months or so. But, I'm working till 7, 8 o'clock, taking the last train home because my first year I lived at my parents still. So I was taking the train, and I would stay past the time of the last express train. So instead of getting, a 25-minute train ride, it was over an hour.
Terrible.
But just, but I would take the 8:30 home just so I could be cold calling people, into the evening. I'd get into the train station 9:30, home by 10 to do it all over again. And, it just, again, it instilled in me that initial drive and hard work and grind, but that's what it took to be successful.
Right.
So
that's that callus that you built up from doing it.
Yeah, and it was, just mentally it was tough, but it was again, not seeing what and thinking about what you're going through and just thinking what is the big picture down the line. And it I forgot where I was going with this for a second, but it was, again, where I was going with it is that it was tough to see me working much harder than certain people around me, but because they had a better natural market, right. You're hearing about $50,000, $100,000 commission cases, and I'm like, they barely pick up the phone.
Yeah, they don't do anything.
And I'm staying here till 8, 9 o'clock grinding just to get things going. And it got to a point where I was about to go into the negatives in terms of my checking account. And it's well, I don't want to go back to my parents who've been supportive, who had some doubts about a full commission job, who turned over money for us to manage to be able to get me off and running. That and then help me pay for a good chunk of school. Yeah. To then be hey, Mom, Dad,
I'm failing at this.
I'm failing. I need money. And you see me coming home at 9, 10 o'clock. And so Dustin, Javier.
Yeah, Dusty.
Yeah, he sat behind me. And I was starting to kind of feel him out. I'm hey, man, I may need a loan here just to stay afloat. Because, I didn't want to go to my parents. And I won't say her name, but I remember a specific woman I had met at the Hinsdale Fine Arts Fest. So Hinsdale's a nice suburb of Chicago. And she was a head of pharmacy. So I'm okay, kind of qualifying her. And she's yeah, I have $500,000 401k. I've been looking to roll over. And I'm perfect. So she's hey, I'm headed on a camping trip. I'm okay, what date are you back? Here, I'm at this date. And this is all happening right around the time where I'm going broke.
Right. So chasing. Now you're I need to get the sale.
Yeah. So I have it circled on my calendar, you know what I mean? And I'm this is my last hope. I call her finally. It's a fake number.
Oh, no.
It's a dead number. And so I'm okay, well, what do I do next? How, again, and if you've never been in this type of situation, desperation, just willingness to break through. So I Google her.
Yeah.
Type in her name, head of pharmacy, see where she's working.
Yeah.
So I called the general switchboard.
She gave you a fake number.
I asked for her.
Yeah.
They're yep, one sec.
Yeah, right.
She picks up.
Yeah.
She picks up.
Amazing.
And then, and I'll give a different name. Susan,
yeah.
great to finally get in touch with you. Mike Karsa from McAdam. We met at the Hinsdale Fine Arts Fest about a month ago. How you been? How was your trip? Like just all this excitement, even though I know she gave me a fake number.
Right.
And she was just like kind of like taken aback a little bit, but she was nice.
Yeah.
And end up setting a meeting with her the following week. I happened to be in her neighborhood. One of those things.
Just one of those.
Yeah.
What are the chances? What are the chances that I'm going to be right next door?
Yeah. So, and I remember, I wanted to go alone. I didn't want to bring my manager. Like I wanted to own the process and prove to myself, backs against the wall, you can get it done.
Right.
And end up being a great case for me. I think made over $30K in commission off that opportunity. And like, had that not happened, I would have been in a very, very bad place.
Different situation.
Yeah. So again, full circle, it's just like I had to stay so mentally sound and focused and strong going through that. And unless you're put into that type of situation, you'll never experience that. And that a switch flipped for me at that point. My confidence went through the roof.
Yeah.
And, I don't think my career would be the same if it wasn't for that situation and moment and outcome.
There's a lot to that, right? Because your back's against the wall. The line between success and failure in everybody's life is very thin, right? And it's the decision that you make when faced with adversity that will actually help you propel you forward if you make the right decision. Right. Your decision was, I'm not going to take no for an answer. I'm going to search this person down regardless. I'm going to, you're thinking to myself, she probably thinks I'm some kind of weird stalker, but you're like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to win at this no matter what. And I'm going to be in your neighborhood. I'm going to make that happen. And you don't forget those stories, right? That's your war story. That's your chip.
Yeah.
That basically was the catalyst that gave you the confidence to move forward. Right?
100%.
So talk about the confidence, because I remember these days and I was always very impressed. I was always been a hard worker. As many times I'd be leaving, right? And you'd be the only one there.
Yeah.
Right. And I also remember days where your confidence got built, but the way you did it, it's my story. I'm going to tell it how I want to, right? Is you would round a bunch of people up and you guys would practice together.
Yeah.
So talk about how your skill development, so your work ethic is apparent from growing up, but the skill development that you had and the leadership really started to show when you were in Chicago.
Yeah.
Talk about your skill development. How did you do that? Why did you do that? What was your thought process?
Well, just to give you a compliment, it's having good mentors first and foremost, and seeing how talented you were in front of clients. And it's like, okay, well, I'm just asking you what you did. And it's like, okay, I read these books. I practice, I'd role play. And so, it's like, don't try to overcomplicate the process. Look around you. I'm a big believer in having mentors, and I've had one in travel soccer, and my head coach being a very successful attorney at the time, and wanted to be like him. And then having you and Kyle at McAdam, and just like, okay, well, what did you guys do to be successful? I'm just going to do that.
Welcome to Take the Power Back. If you're a student or recent grad looking not to have a career handed to you, you're in the right place. The first and really valuable section inside Take the Power Back, by joining the movement, is really the inspiration that you get by watching the podcast of young, successful entrepreneurs that have bet on themselves, that had opportunities in order to be able to take jobs with benefits or $50,000 a year salaries. But what they did is they said, I'm going to pursue something bigger in my life. Entrepreneurship, leadership development, sales, marketing, real estate. And with the amount of inspiration that you can get by actually watching other people that have had success, start to give you a vision for yourself for you to be able to achieve greater things in your life. Let's dive into it. It's interesting because you probably didn't realize it at the time, but you were just taking arrows and you're putting them in your quiver. So then when you get to this high net worth space, right, the skill that you had learned there was what the skill that propelled you to be able to communicate at a different level on a high level, basis.
Yeah, and so to give some context to kind of where you're going it was about 3.5, 4 years into being at McAdam. I was presented the opportunity that I'm with now, and a few things went into that decision, but it was going upstream where $1 million plus clients at a minimum, and offering state and tax planning, et cetera, and that was. Robo advisors were starting to come out, and if you were just offering basic asset allocation, it could be found cheaper.
Yep.
And I knew the younger generations would be comfortable doing business with potentially the internet, right, or a computer, and someone they'd never met, or remotely. And so it was a bit from almost like a career stability from one aspect. It's like, okay, the higher net worth are going to always want to be paying for face-to-face interaction. And then two, I felt I wanted to play in the major leagues, right? And I felt I had the capability, the skill set. I was probably overconfident, to be honest, at that point in time.
You said enough.
Yeah, right. but
I believe that.
Yeah, no, but there's some truth to that. But yeah, just wanted to play in the major leagues and see if I had what it took, and found out early on it's the same game. Right? It was the same game, arguably easier game than we were playing, at McAdam. So it was very interesting to both deal with a higher net worth clients, but follow a really similar process that you had instilled in me, and then. Two was just to do it around the country. So I was traveling, throughout the Midwest and East Coast and Mountain West, and just like to be at 25 years old, dealing with millionaires and not having a ton of things to relate to someone in Memphis, Tennessee, right? And being able
City slicker,
right, and being able to still see success. I was a bit honestly surprised early on that, the foundation had mass application to that extent that was built at McAdam, but it very much was the case.
Where did you learn? So you're a very socially aware young man. You've always have been. Mm-hmm. So, I always used to, sometimes I'd come in and sit down and you'd basically be like, feeling me out.
I'm just kind of feeling your body language and energy.
Having a conversation. You're like, I'm like,
what's the angle here, buddy? Yeah.
I'm like, I don't have an angle. And he's like, so tell me, because I always have some angle.
Yeah, right.
I'm like, you little bastard. I'm sure you were working me over. So where did that come from? Because you have a lot of very good social awareness, which is not usual for people your age.
Yeah. It's an interesting observation, and it's looking back, you would call me out on it as well. But two, I do pride myself in that ability, and it translates well to any type of sales process, right? And because you got
or just life in general,
it's true, very true. And again, it's going back to what I mentioned earlier is kind of being that introverted extrovert, and that kind of once I get the momentum going, get out there, I'm happy to talk to everybody, but it's just that initial start to, and it's on a daily basis. It's kind of resets. But growing up, I would just kind of observe, and it's just like, I would sit, and just kind of watch around me, and just, I find psychology very interesting, and I almost considered going into that. But then you had to go to extra school. So finance sounds better.
Well, maybe the bar sounds good.
Yeah, right. But to this day, I just find it so interesting to try to figure everybody out. Yeah. And just, I love understanding why people, and trying to understand why people make the decisions that they do. And to be honest, I think I've just always been that way. And also, again, being more introverted growing up, it was... that was my way of just navigating social situations, and it was a muscle, right, that just continued to develop and get stronger over time. And I think it's allowed me to make really good life decisions and surround myself with good people around me, which I'm becoming much more and more sensitive to, right, as this success has grown. And so yeah, that's kind of it.
Talk about AI. You and I just had a little conversation about this. I think the young generation today, I think warranted in some ways, and in other ways not completely warranted at all. But I think there's a perception. I was talking to the film folks here, and they were saying, they're going to take their jobs. They're in film editing, right? Mm-hmm. So eventually, you don't even need a camera. They could make a body of you, and they could type a script, and they could tell it to jump around, and it could do that.
Sure.
So what do you see AI? What would you be worried about? What are you excited about? What's your view about it?
Sure. Well, just speaking personally from a use standpoint, it's something I utilize every day.
Yeah.
And
me too.
And it's looking back now, it's like I don't know what I did without it.
Oh, yeah.
And you know what I mean?
It didn't take long to adapt it, right?
Yeah. So, which is almost kind of scary at the same time. It's like, okay, well, am I not working out a certain part of my brain and muscle that is going to get lost over time? But regardless, we're going to power forward on that. But yeah, in terms of just personally from an efficiency standpoint, evaluating work situations, client situations, personal life situations, I've kind of created parameters within multiple large language models, and I'll kind of pin them against each other. So I'll take like Claude's response,
against Chat,
like Grok or ChatGPT. I'm like, what are your thoughts? What do you agree? What do you disagree? And then throw it back into Claude.
That's interesting.
And then kind of seek to get an optimized response. And or like another example of that was recently it's not that tough of a decision, but it was there's an annual golf trip I do with my college buddies that is taken super serious. There's a draft, there's a trophy, and again, the guys are super into it, and it happens to fall on a date in October, the same date as a buddy of mine's wedding. So I'm like, which one do I attend? So I asked 4 different, and 3 of the 4 said the golf trip. So
that's right.
I'll take my buddy to a nice dinner for missing the wedding. But anyway, I'm using it in a lot of different ways from a personal standpoint, from an making efficient decisions and or challenging my thought process to ensure that I'm thinking and viewing something the right way. I am very sensitive to and conscious of it not just creating confirmation, bias, right, either. So I'm constantly, and that's oftentimes where I'll check multiple models from a professional standpoint and where things go with it. Again, I think initially it's going to make things easier. So like with our paperwork, DocuSign onboarding process is where we're starting to see that utilized and be able to help efficiency on the back end and back office. And it'll be interesting, right, for new college grads coming into it, because that's oftentimes, right, the kind of entry level role at our firm is working on the onboarding for clients. But what we're seeing is it's now just the starting jobs are more client facing. So it's actually allowing for younger, less experienced people to be thrust into a higher level job than they would have been.
Right.
So I think it's actually in the current state, and I think in the near state, beneficial for the younger generations having more elevated responsibilities. And I think then confirming that the AI is doing what it's going to do. How it develops from here beyond the next few years, it's so hard to say, right? Think about how much it's developed in the last few years. So
it's amazing.
So yeah, it's interesting. It's been great so far. I think it's going in a great direction, but it's also scary, and the fear of the unknown, and will the human being be replaced? I again, going back to the being the first in front lines and in front of clients, that'll never be replaced.
No.
Right?
Well, the ChatGPT or whatever, Claude or AI will never replace it. It'll tell you whatever you want it to tell you, right? So you could ask it whatever you want, and you could say, "Tell me the opposite of that," and it will. So
Right.
it doesn't have any feelings. And I think when it comes to managing people's money and goal achievement and what keeps them up at night, AI is never going to solve. The only thing that's going to solve that is having somebody to lean on. You know, John Hance once said, he said, AI is a cold hand to hold when the market's down 30%, right? When you don't know what to do.
Sure.
And the second thing is you can give me a list of things to do, but somebody's going to help you take action. Everybody needs
Like a
accountability.
personal trainer, right?
Everybody needs a personal trainer.
Yeah.
You know? So I think the entrepreneurship, you know, I just bought a restaurant. I don't know if I told you that.
I know you were working on that.
Yeah. And I interviewed Chef Jordan. You know, she was the one who was here before you. She's my new executive chef,
Nice.
right? So she's moving from Nashville. But when the day is done, AI is not going to prepare a steak. You know, it's not going to clean your floors. It's not going to do that. And I think in life, particularly in the field that we're in and other entrepreneurs, it doesn't really matter. It's about distribution, right? So it's your value to solve problems. You solve big problems for rich people, and you get paid quite handsomely for that.
Sure.
And you deserve it, right? You know, and I think that need will always be there, regardless of what happens.
I think all very fair points, and yet the accountability part, I think they're spot on, because people don't enjoy oftentimes dealing with their finances, right? And especially when you're getting into tax and estate pieces of it. So helping actually guide them through it, holding them accountable to get certain things done, and or handling it for them, again, are things that would be hard to replace. And there's a lot of bad information out there as well.
There is. It
Right?
lies.
So,
It tells you whatever you want, right?
right. So to your point, one, you can kind of get the answer that you want, which may not be the right answer.
Right.
And two, you may just be getting bad information. And that's, again, where good, in our case, financial advice, it's going to be hard to replace.
So let's talk about what life of Karsa is. We'll keep it.
Yeah.
We'll keep it as the senior.
We'll keep it. Yeah.
Keep it
corporate.
We'll keep it corporate.
Keep it compliant.
What's it like? So you were probably done the best of anybody at your age that I've personally known, right?
Sure.
So you and I called you up one day, and you're like, I just bought a Ferrari, and you bought a Ferrari.
we bought the same one.
We bought the same car.
I'm like, wait, the Spider-Man meme. I was like,
right.
wait, what's going on?
I bought a Cullen, and you bought a G-Wagon. So I was like, hey, I bought a new Rolls. He's like, I just got a new G-Wagon, right? So you're doing what I can do at 20 years older, right? What's it like, dude? What's it like? And you're single. Sorry, ladies.
Yeah, recently. So that's that's been fun. But it's a great question. It's tough to answer, but I'll give some just knee-jerk thoughts. One is it happened so fast.
Yeah.
Right. It was really like being shot out of a cannon, and well,
it did. It took 20 years in the making.
Yeah,
right?
true. Right. It depends. Yeah, how you
in
do
hindsight,
it. Right. But from where I was at to where I'm at from my income and net worth and liquid net worth, it's just it's come a long ways. And so, but it's interesting. I almost chase and purposely create chaos in my life, and I probably need a therapist, to be honest.
This is good. Keep going.
We won't make this I won't make it be that today, but you have been that for me in the past. But for the sake of the listeners, but yeah, I control and dictate my schedule.
Yeah.
And I'll look at my calendar. It's like, oh, I have these weekends open. Well, I need to go find somewhere to do. So I'm like, I'm going to be in Chicago next week and Arizona the following week, and I'm trying to get Coachella tickets for April. And I'm like, the ski season, probably that's done. So I just need to constantly be maximizing. At least that's how I'm just become and been wired. And what I'm getting at is because I'm constantly on the go. I had 150 flights I took last year.
150 flights.
Yes.
Holy shit.
So just constantly on the go.
Is that work related?
Well, it's all combination.
Combination.
Combo. So yeah, I have a condo in Chicago, home in Paradise Valley, Arizona, a nice part of Scottsdale, essentially. And so I'm constantly back and forth between those two, and then traveling for fun and or traveling for work.
Right.
And so because I'm just constantly on the go, and then my I like to say my school nights, but like my work days are slammed, right? So if I'm in Arizona, I'm usually getting like a 6:30 a.m. personal trainer hour workout, and then I'm working 7:30 because I'm working Central Time hours, but in Arizona, which based on the time of year is 1 to 2 years behind. And then, but I'm working then Arizona hours too. So I'm working oftentimes like 7:30 to 5. And when I say work, that's not just, looking at emails. That's I'm putting on a show.
Right.
I'm presenting.
Yeah. So it's exhausting.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and then I'll see my golf coach, or I'll have social plans or whatever it may be, and then catching up on emails. So like I have little time to just sit down and reflect is my long-winded way of saying I don't slow down and smell the roses too often.
Right.
And that's something I've been trying to become more conscious of and just reflect and appreciate my situation. But it's just kind of like I know I'm in a unique place, a unique situation, and I look to just maximize that as much as possible with fun experiences and nice things and whatever else may come with that.
Right. We'll just keep it to that there. It's funny that today, in life, what you do is you seek experiences, right? So it's like, you can go anywhere in the world, but that's not really enough anymore. It's like when you get there, what cool thing are you going to do that'll become more memorable than doing whatever you want? Have you thought about what, you get one more liquidity event, will you still work? Do you thinking you're going to, are there any passions that you have? Like what's next for MJ Karsa, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's something I've started to think about because, that could be 3 to 5 years from now, based on knock on wood, based on how some things go, and where at least I'll have the opportunity to, I could step away now, to be honest, but like I live an expensive lifestyle, so to be
a good summer.
Right,
you could have a good summer, and that could be all gone.
But yeah, I could walk away and live a pretty solid lifestyle, but not the lifestyle I've become used to.
Yeah.
And so, but certainly, again, if all things go well, be in an extremely comfortable place. And yeah, it's interesting because I'm ranked nationally by Forbes and as a wealth manager under 40, number 10 nationally, number 1 in Chicago. And I say that really just for that. I kind of feel I've reached the top of the mountain per se, right? I'm a senior partner at a very well established, firm, nationally recognized. And I don't really want to be like a CEO or president of a company because I like being in the trenches and meeting with clients and presenting. And so, yeah, I could see myself, starting my own thing for certain things that I've signed to get to the point that I'm at. It can't be financial services related. I think it's so cool, the restaurant thing that you're doing. I've dipped my toe into that in certain cases in Chicago as well. Bit more passively, but could potentially be becoming much more hands-on sooner than later. And that's been a fun thing to kind of navigate and the structuring and dealing with the attorneys or I could see myself, I'm not that creative. So I could see someone else coming up with a really cool idea, needing some funding, and then needing the sales guy.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I'll help fund this.
And you go sell
and I'll do this, do the sales, and we'll go in 50-50 partners and let's blow this thing up. What that could be anything.
Right. Doesn't really matter.
But because I've essentially built a firm within the firm, I feel I have what it takes to go the full-on entrepreneurial route, and it's easier to do when you got a really nice cushion behind you.
Yeah, it's easier.
And yeah, just to really be in full control of the destiny and be making broad, sweeping decisions that impact the entire company, and just climbing a new mountain, just seeking fulfillment with something else.
Yeah, and I think that's important. Our similar situations are similar in that regard. And what I have found is now that I can retire, I don't want to. I'm like almost scared of it. So I'm like, all right, let me start another business and another business. And that's what started this. Like the Power Back is, more of a passion project of mine because I'm at Handshake, but it's actually turned into something different. And what happens is a result of that, it started to accelerate. So more movement that you have by following different passions, they end up, they're harder than they're easier to put together. And I think they go further than you would have thought.
Sure.
Than when you initially do it. So as you're thinking about this, right, you've got a young generation hopefully watching us here today, and you're going to give them advice of what to do and not to do coming out of school. Just any advice that you'd give them.
Sure. Yeah, just reiterating some things and then some new pieces as well, but reflecting on the last, post-graduation with the 2012, so last, 14 years plus of my life, surrounding yourself with a supportive group of people is extremely important, especially if you're going an entrepreneurial route where you're going to go through some ups and downs. It's not always going to be roses. You need people behind you, whether that's family, friends, or a combination, that know what your goal was at the end of the day, and not saying, oh yeah, just take that easy path and route and hit the exit, and that are going to continue to push you and to elevate you. So having that really strong foundation and supportive group, because then also at the same time, while it's very important to be supportive early on when you're going to deal with the ups and downs, when you do start to have success, well, you find out sometimes there's some haters, right, in the group.
Lots of haters.
And that's been something that's been really interesting for me, because I feel I get along with pretty much everybody. Mm-hmm. And then you start to have more and more success, and you kind of hear through the grapevine of people not talking so nicely about you or saying it to your face even.
Yeah, right. You're like, oh, where did that come from? I never did anything but nice to you.
Yeah. So yeah, I think just being conscious of that, both short and long term, will pay off big. Not being afraid to take risks when you can take risks, mm-hmm. right? If early on in your career, try different things. Again, I was lucky that I happened to end up being passionate about the first career path that I chose, and being a financial advisor. And I truly believe for anyone to reach their full potential and success, you have to be passionate about whatever it is that you do. And so find out whatever that passion is, and maybe you'll be lucky like me, and it's the first job in career path you find out of school, or it's the fifth thing. But I would say find out whatever that passion is, and then go max out balls to the walls with it.
How much of that passion came from the culture that you ended up coming to? Was it so? A lot of times I'm like, I became passionate about something that I initially didn't like, that I ended up liking, mm-hmm. And then I became passionate about it. Right. So, how much of that do you think was culture related?
I think a big part of that.
Right.
I could be selling vacuums, but if it was competitive and you were, not against, but comparing your performance and success and total clients and commissions and close rates and calls made against others, I could see myself being, just as passionate to an extent as to what I'm doing now. So definitely the culture, the environment, the situation.
So it wasn't the job that you were passionate about. It was the environment and culture of the people around you, and what it was as a competition. It was just like you're kicking the soccer ball as a kid, and you're like, I can win at that, right? So,
100%.
and that's like that kind of spirit. And then obviously you're as good as the team you play for,
Sure.
right? So, Chicago was a good office. We had good people, right? We worked hard. It was a fun, people high-fived. And then Lido's a good company, and they had big aspirations and good leadership. And those two things combined were able to propel you.
100%. And and then to continue to go down the line is just, again, I've said it already, but having a good mentor. And because, again, just not trying to recreate the wheel and having that supportive person behind you when you're at a crossroads and which path do I go, like getting someone who's well educated and experienced and that will give you good advice. Because there's a lot of people that want to give advice out there.
Yeah,
right?
Doesn't mean you should listen to it.
It doesn't mean you should listen. So, and finding that mentor, extremely important. But those would be, the few things that initially come to mind.
Well, Mike, I appreciate you coming out, right? Flying out here to see me. I've watched you grow and develop and have unbelievable amounts of success. And if anybody watches that, they truly know that you're really just a grinder, man. When it comes right down to it, you've worked harder than everybody else. You put in the hours 7 days a week. You're always open for feedback, and it's recognized in what you've been able to accomplish. So congratulations, brother. I appreciate you doing it.